Hi, I'm Godfrey and welcome to Growth Hackers, the show where we talk about how you can use digital to grow your business. In the past, we've talked quite a lot about some of the social media channels out there, particularly Facebook. We've talked about Google. We've talked about a lot of the more general aspects that have things to do with digital and getting your business out there. But there is one particular social network that a lot of people seem to have difficulty with, and that is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very different from most of the social networks. It's right from the outset, it was designed to be a business-to-business social network, a place where you could get together with people within your industry, potential customers, potential collaborators, to talk about issues that actually matter to all of you. It's a platform that's been around a very long time. There are probably more than 8 million C-level executives in the world. That's people who are CEOs or CIOs or CXOs, CMOs, who use LinkedIn, registered on LinkedIn and use it on a regular basis. It's used, or it used to be used, primarily for recruitment. The idea would be that you'd put your CV up on LinkedIn and hope that somebody who was looking to fill a job might find you and approach you. Things have changed a lot in LinkedIn over the past 2 to 3 years, though. It was acquired recently by Microsoft, and a lot of changes have kicked in as a result of that. But it's also learned a lot from the growth of platforms like Facebook. I think LinkedIn has learned that what people really want to do is connect with each other. It's not really about selling yourself to potential employees or employers. So a lot of the changes that have kicked in have made it a lot easier for companies to connect with other companies and for individuals to connect with potential suppliers or potential customers. So today what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how you can use LinkedIn and how you should be using LinkedIn to maximum effect. Of course, it is a vast network, and that is always a problem. You know, there are hundreds of millions of people on LinkedIn. In South Africa alone, there are more than 6 million people have profiles on LinkedIn. That's probably more people than pay taxes. So anybody who is significant, anybody who is commercially active, does have at least a presence on LinkedIn, whether they're using it actively or not. Now, I know that social media is a problem for a lot of people. You just don't have enough time in the day. You can, at most, spend your time on 2 to 2.5 networks in total. So you've got to pick the ones that really work for you. But if you are a business person, whether you're a small business or medium business or a very large corporation, and your primary customer is a business or a professional, then LinkedIn is the place where you've got to put your attention, because you're not going to be able to connect with those people as well or as effectively on a platform like Facebook. The other exception might possibly be Twitter, because Twitter is used extensively by professionals. But between Twitter and Facebook, between Twitter and LinkedIn, you're going to find that you can get out to just about anybody that you need to get out to if you know how to do it and do it well. So how do you actually go about doing that? Let's look at 10 basic steps to getting LinkedIn right. The very first one is you've got to get your profile professional and complete. Unlike Facebook, where it doesn't really matter what you put on your profile because you're connecting with friends or people that you know, and you don't need to talk about who you are or what you've done. LinkedIn is really all about connecting with strangers. It's all about, in the old-fashioned sense of the term, networking. It's all about introducing yourself to people who don't know you and making the right impression. And the first place you make that impression is on your profile on LinkedIn. Now, the LinkedIn profile format can be a little bit daunting, because it offers so much opportunity for you to provide content. So let's talk about that in a little bit of detail later on. But let's for now just say that step number one, get your profile right. If you've just opened up a LinkedIn account and you've put your name on there and you've walked away from it, don't expect LinkedIn to work for you at all. The second one is really to connect with people who matter. There are a lot of people out there, but they don't necessarily matter to you. LinkedIn is not about connecting with your friends. It's about connecting with people who are colleagues, potential customers, potential suppliers, or people who can be helpful to you in one way or another by sharing their expertise. It's a platform where people willingly share their expertise with you without charging you a consulting fee for the information that they are providing. But if you don't connect with people, you're wasting your time. The whole point of networking is to network. And failing to work the network is pointless. It's a complete waste of time. The third thing you've got to do is to take a close look at the settings that you've got on LinkedIn. There's quite a lot that you can do to manage your own privacy on LinkedIn. There's quite a lot that you can do to control what notifications you get, what notifications you don't get. So make sure that you're not bombarded with messages coming from the platform. Make sure that the level of information flow you get is correct, but don't shut it down completely, because if somebody does want to contact you, you want to know about it within 24 hours. You don't want to have to discover it a month later when it's probably too late because the project has moved on to somewhere else. The fourth one is to really keep in touch with your customers. How do you do that? You do that by having a living presence on the platform. You don't just post a profile which tells people who you are and then walk away from it and hope that it will work for you. You need to make those connections and then keep those connections alive, in the same way that you would keep a friend's connections alive just by saying, hey, how are you doing? This is what I'm doing. I'm having a great time. This has been a really interesting project. Do you have any information that might help me to achieve? I'm sorry about that. Let me just pick that one back up. Do you have any information that helped me to achieve my goals in terms of my projects? You will find that on LinkedIn, a lot of people are more than happy to help other people. In fact, sometimes it's a little overwhelming because people love to share their expertise in a way which is sometimes a little bit annoying and a little bit egotistical. But you need to figure that out by spending the time and getting to know who is useful to you, who is friendly to you, and who is just trying to spam you with their own information. So 4 steps so far, okay? Get your profile correct, put some energy and effort into it, connect with the right people, connect with people who can be helpful to you or who you can be helpful to, because that is also a fundamental part of achieving what you're trying to achieve in social media. Make sure that you are active on the platform and not passive on the platform, and then keep those relationships alive as you go forward. The 5th step really is to keep tabs on your competitors, because you know who your competitors are in your industry. You know who your local competitors are, who your international competitors are. You know who the individuals are that you're possibly competing with if you are, say, a tax consultant, or if you are somebody who provides security systems to small businesses. Monitor what they're doing. You have the ability to follow companies on LinkedIn, and you can see what they're saying, you can see what they're doing, you can see what they're talking about, and more importantly, you can see who they're connected with. So all of those facilities are available to you to keep in touch with what's going on in your industry without necessarily having to go out and do massive research. It's all there for you. The next step really is to stay on top of the leading ideas that are out there. So this is probably what LinkedIn is used for more than anything else. It's certainly how I use it more than anything else. What does that mean? People who are active on LinkedIn have to add value to that community. There's no point in going on there and sharing photographs of your breakfast, which is what you might do on Instagram, for example, or what you might do on Facebook, because really people are not interested, and they will tell you that they're not interested. You also don't have to be boringly over-professional, all right? You need to be human in the way you actually engage with people. But staying in touch with leading ideas is something which LinkedIn facilitates more than anything else. So here's a couple of examples. On LinkedIn, you can choose to follow certain people. You can follow anybody on LinkedIn. That means that whenever they post something, it appears in your newsfeed. That may sound familiar to you if you're a user of any of the other social platforms. By following people who are leaders in the field that you're operating in, you stay up to date with what's actually happening. You stay up to date with the news, you stay up to date with the views, and you stay up to date with the discussions and the debates that are going on. And again, more importantly perhaps, you stay in touch with the people that are engaging in those discussions. So LinkedIn is a brilliant place to go and find out about what's going on in your world. In my particular case, because I am really passionate about digital marketing, I follow a lot of people, and anytime I go onto LinkedIn, I learn something, and I learn a lot on a daily basis. So it helps to keep me up to date in a way which is, it doesn't feel like I'm doing homework, because it's my friends and my connections talking about stuff that interests them in a way which communicates relatively easily. You can then lead that into the next step in LinkedIn, which is all about building your own thought leadership. Thought leadership is an expression which is grossly overused in business generally today. Everybody likes to call themselves a thought leader. And as a result, nobody really is a thought leader. But the idea of thought leadership is that you need to be seen to be somebody who is on top of the game. You need to be somebody who knows more about and is more actively engaged with the subject that is close to your business than anybody else. So if you are somebody who is installing security cameras in businesses, for example, and that's your business, you need to be seen to be the guy or the woman who knows more about that, is more interested in that, is more up to date with new thinking in that area, who knows where the technology is going, and who actually is able to provide advice that is current and refreshing and real, as opposed to the guy that just takes out an ad in the yellow pages and pushes the technology he's been pushing for the last 10 years. So being a thought leader is really all about being seen to be on top of the emerging trends in your industry and understanding the issues, even if you don't have the answers. And that's a relatively easy thing to do. It's not all about having a PhD thesis on a particular subject. It's all about being current and being fresh. And one of the things that small businesses are really good at is thought leadership. If you are a CMO in a major corporation, you generally tend to spend all day in meetings. You tend to work under a lot of pressure. You tend to basically have other people who do your research for you. And as a result, it's really hard for you to project yourself as being a thought leader in your space. You might speak at the occasional conference, typically a presentation that's been put together for you by somebody else. Small businesses are really in touch with their business. For one, they tend to be hands-on with the technologies and the tools and the products and the services that they're actually providing. And number two, they're in touch with their customers. So they know what their customers are asking, they know what their customers are doing. And number three, small business people tend to be a lot more conversational and networked and authentic because they're talking to other people in the industry. It's part of that community that you find yourself in. And as a result, you tend to exchange ideas a lot more vigorously than perhaps somebody who shows up at the office at 9 o'clock in the morning and just spends all day in meetings and then hustles home as soon as they can. So don't think that because you are not a massive senior executive in a major corporation, or that you're not a professor in a university, that you can't be a thought leader in your space, because you totally can. So how do you do that? So you need to express your enthusiasm and your passion and your interest in your particular subject, and you can do that in a number of different ways. You can write articles. On LinkedIn you have two opportunities. The first one is you can write a post. A post is typically what you might think of as an article or a blog post, and it will typically be something that is more than 600, 800 characters. It might even be as much as a page or two. That's something that you won't be doing every day. But it might be something that you might choose to do if you're particularly interested in an aspect of your subject. The other thing that you can do is you can post comments. You can post messages. You can post simple 2, 3, 4 sentence long commentaries which go into people's news feeds. And those typically engage far more conversation than the longer articles do, because they're much easier to digest. People can assimilate them. They can respond to them relatively easily. So, two choices. You write the long articles, or you do short stuff, which is going to go into the news feed. The short stuff that goes into the news feed is really easy to do because it doesn't require a great deal of your time. It doesn't require a huge amount of research. Typically, the posts that get the most reaction are posts that are actually asking a question. And if you want to be a thought leader, you need to ask as many questions as you answer, because that actually puts you in a position where people start to connect with you, and you can respond to the responses in a way which demonstrates that you have a really sound understanding of what you're talking about. Those short posts can be text, They can be links, so you can share articles. If you're sharing an article, it's usually a good idea to comment on it, 1 or 2 sentences, either summarizing it or pulling a key point out and disagreeing with it or agreeing with it, but provide a link to the original article. But also LinkedIn, now it's in its Microsoft phase, has moved into the era of image-based and visual posting. So you can post a photograph, you can post an infographic, you can post a slide from one of your presentations, or you can upload a video. One of the most annoying things about LinkedIn is that by default, all the videos in your newsfeed play. So it takes you a long time to scroll through your newsfeed unless you go into your default settings and turn off the autoplay functionality. But a lot of videos are now being uploaded onto LinkedIn. And video is a really good way of getting a more comprehensive story out than you can in 1 or 2 sentences or in a still image. A particularly popular and quite successful tool is a tool that allows you to put together a slideshow that has text running across the bottom or text merging through into the slides. And it just runs as an animated video. There are lots of tools out there that will let you do that for free, by the way, if you want to do that. And I would strongly recommend that you take a look at a tool called Lumen5, Lumen, and the number 5.com. Brilliant tool that allows you to pull together slideshows, videos with text overlays and music overlays as well. And it doesn't require you to be technically particularly brilliant to do that. So that allows you to get your message out there in a way which is eye-catching and which may actually stimulate some response. Remember, though, that the more videos that there are out there, the more noisy things tend to become and the more people tend to value something which is easier to digest. One of the things that I do quite a lot of is if I'm doing a presentation at a conference, I might pull 3 or 4 of the main slides from my presentation, save them out as images, and then just upload them into LinkedIn and put some comment on them. And that automatically kind of tells people that I was at the conference. It also tells them the main points that I was making, and it poses a question or makes a statement, ideally fairly provocative, that then stimulates some discussion. And that helps you to elevate yourself into whatever the theme is of the day. The theme of the day is also quite important. So don't be stale in the way that you use LinkedIn. Try to be as current as you possibly can. So if there is something going on in your industry or in the world that is relevant to you and your business, talk about it. Talk about it timeously. Don't try to be too abstract. Don't try to be too general. And don't try to be generic in what you do. Okay, try to be as specific as you can, and that puts you out there as a human presence with a human perspective and a real set of values and a real set of experience behind your values. It's easy to do that if you don't feel intimidated by the tool. And one of the things that happens on LinkedIn that you don't seem to see a lot in other social platforms is there's not a lot of trolling that goes on. Okay, you don't get people who are unpleasant to you. You don't get people who are negative or nasty or judgmental on LinkedIn. A lot of people will, if they don't like what you're saying, they'll just ignore you and move on. You won't get people coming back and deliberately looking for a fight because they have their own egos being projected already and they don't really want to damage their egos by coming across as being petty or unpleasant. Okay, so stay on top of your leading ideas, build your thought leadership, and then demonstrate through that process that your company has leadership that is really authentic and really human and really knowledgeable. Okay, so that allows your thought leadership to then back into the humanity of the people that are running the organization, makes you seem particularly interesting, it makes you seem approachable, which is really important, as opposed to being standoffish, and it puts a human face on your business. If you're in a small business and you've got 3 or 4 colleagues, it is a really good idea for each of you to have a presence on LinkedIn and to cross-post and to comment on each other's postings. Because that, again, gives the impression that there is a team at work and that there are people with different shades and perspectives on topics, all working within the organization, and it helps to create the character and the branding of the organization with a human face or a set of human faces. I'm not saying you need to spend hours every day doing this. You probably only need to spend a maximum of 10 or 15 minutes every day. And then over a period of time, you might be able to drop that down to 10 or 15 minutes every 2 or 3 days. And you'll find that you actually become very, very good at this and very proficient at doing this. Don't be shy about it. Okay, networking online is just like networking in the real world. You don't go to a networking opportunity physically and stand around in the corner with a drink in your hand, looking at people and hoping somebody will say hello to you. You've got to go out, introduce yourself, and make people be interested in you. When you do that physically, when you do that in a real social engagement, you've got to use what is called an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is how do you introduce yourself in such a way which makes you sound really interesting in 30 seconds. So how would you introduce yourself if you step into an elevator with somebody whose attention you want to grab? That same logic, that same thinking applies to how you introduce yourself on LinkedIn. So if we go back to the profile that you have on LinkedIn, the first thing that you've got is you can put your name in there and you can put your photograph in there, but then you've got a headline and you've got a summary. The headline and the summary really, really matter because those are probably the only things people will see before they decide whether or not to bother to read the rest. Okay? So again, don't be generic. Don't say that I am an experienced marketing manager, because there are millions of experienced marketing managers on LinkedIn. Say that you are a dynamite marketing manager with expertise in social growth. Bam, that suddenly makes you sound much more interesting than the person that is bland. And when people are searching for you on LinkedIn, they tend to search for those particular keywords. They will look for something which differentiates you from the masses rather than merges you into the masses. So take a look at who your competitors are, take a look at how they describe themselves, take a look at the jobs being offered by people and look at the keywords that are in there that differentiate what they are looking for from what other people are looking for, and make sure you have those keywords either in your job title or, more importantly, in the summary of your career that appears immediately underneath it. Typically short 2-3 sentences which basically says who you are and what you've done. If that isn't impactful, if that isn't differentiating, they will never get to look down at the detail that flows below that. And the detail that flows below that is really important to explore and to populate. If you want to be found in a LinkedIn search, your profile has to be complete. That's just one of the LinkedIn things. A couple of the things in the last couple of minutes that we have left that I want to talk about within that profile. You have the opportunity to get endorsements and recommendations. Do so. An endorsement is where somebody says, Godfrey Parkin knows about marketing, and just clicks a button. And Godfrey Parkin knows about social media, clicks the social media button. There are hundreds of keywords or themes within LinkedIn that you can say that you are an expert on or that you are good at, and then people will endorse you by clicking the button and endorsing the fact that you know something about that. Don't be afraid to put that in there. And the best way to populate that and the best way to get people to click you is to click on other people. So you go into other people's profiles and you acknowledge them, you endorse them for what they're doing. They get a notification saying that Godfrey Parkin has endorsed you for real estate, and they'll come back to me and they'll go, okay, this guy's good at marketing. Okay? It's a reciprocal thing. It's rather like poking on Facebook, except in a more business sense. Recommendations comes in under endorsements, and recommendations are actually a much more powerful tool, but you don't need more than 3 or 4 of them because nobody reads beyond the first 3 anyway. And a recommendation is where a person that you've got a really good relationship with or have had a really good business relationship with will say 1 or 2 things about you. They'll say a sentence, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, which say, this person came into my business and did X, Y, and Z, and the result was absolutely amazing. I can heartily recommend him. That's really powerful stuff, and you need to get those. And again, the best way to get that is to ask your customers to do that. Send them a link to your page and say, could you please do that? Or to go in and recommend colleagues in the industry, and they in turn will reciprocate for you. Those give you the most powerful kicks that you can get on a LinkedIn profile. And beneath that, there's a whole bunch of other things you can do. You can talk about patents that you've got. You can talk about publications that you've produced. If you do presentations at all, if you're involved in video at all, you can pull those into your profile as well with a couple of clicks that make your profile look really, really substantial and competitive. So LinkedIn gives you that fantastic opportunity to create your own personal brand as an individual, but it also gives you the opportunity to create a really strong profile for your company, because in the same way that you create your personal profile, you can create a business profile as well. And you'll be talking a little bit more about what your business does than about what you do, but it gives you the opportunity to trade the two off against each other. If you are in business, if your customer base is business, then you have to be on LinkedIn, and you have to make the effort to do that. And then you need to go back and see what is working and what is not working over time. We're probably running out of time right now, so I'll pick this up at another time, because the other things that you can do on LinkedIn are advertising in a very targeted way as well, and that gives you some great results. But we'll add that in when we talk about advertising on another episode of Growth Hackers as we go forward. So for now, this is me, Godfrey Parkin. You've been watching Growth Hackers. Follow us. Please send us any questions or comments that you have, either to the Deen Channel Facebook page or to me by email, godfrey.parkin@brightfire.com, and we'll see if we can include some of those in future episodes of Growth Hackers. For now, thanks for watching.